All right. Welcome to the September 18th, 2023 meeting of the Ann Arbor District Library Board of Trustees. Have we taken attendance? Yes. Thank you, Karen. We have a motion for a closed session for the discussion of real estate and opinion of legal counsel.
Second. That is so loud.
Okay, any discussion? All right, that is a roll call vote.
Trustee Hadley.
Yes.
Trustee Kleinman.
Yes.
Trustee Leon.
Yes.
Trustee Solomon.
Yes.
Trustee Silva.
Yes.
Trustee Trudeau.
Yes. All right, that passes. So we will recess to closed session and
Resume at 7 p.m.
7 p.m. in this room. Thanks.
Friday night took care of my weekday blues.
Beginning of the peak growing season, we've got lots of light and heat to get things off to a roaring start.
So Angie, what's growing right now?
So this is our garlic, and right about now it starts to send up a flower shoot that you can actually pick and eat. It's called a garlic scape. And that's it, and this is the part you eat. Here's some radishes ready to harvest.
Wow! And what will grow later in the summer?
Oh man, a lot of stuff. Tomatoes, watermelons, cucumbers, basil, all kinds of yummy stuff. So here are some baby watermelons that we just planted. We put them in the trays at the beginning of May, and we'll probably get melons sometime in August.
Last question. It's very hot in the summer, so how do you, as farmers, stay cool?
Well, we wear hats to protect our faces from the sun.
Yep, and after we're done working in the fields, you go swimming.
Ooh, that sounds fun! Thank you very much, Angie and Mark.
Thanks, Hazel, for coming to see the farm.
Yeah, thanks for coming to check it out.
Meanwhile, back in town, Lauren built space for a small garden in his backyard.
That's right, Hazel. Summer means fresh homegrown salad greens.
Lauren, where's your hat?
Oh, that's right, Hazel. Thanks.
At least we found some shade here, Toby. Do you think there's any books that'll teach us how to keep cool?
Maybe. We could figure out how other animals keep themselves cool and try to replicate that. I know you're cold-blooded, so don't you just find somewhere cold to sit?
Usually, although in the city there's not a lot of chilly spots in the middle of summer. And what about you, Toby? Don't you sweat to keep cool?
Yep, maybe a little too much.
Well, what about Teddy? He's a smart fella. I bet he knows how to keep cool.
Hi. As you might know, humans, like us, produce sweat when we become overheated. This is a very efficient mechanism by which the human body regulates its temperature when it's hot. We have sweat glands all over our bodies so that the cooling process takes place over a large surface area of the skin, which is great. What about dogs, though? Do they sweat in the same way? Toby and Otto wanted me to ask Teddy, so I did. Let me tell you what he said.
Whew, it's hot. And unlike you humans, we dogs have very few sweat glands. Most of mine are on the bottom of my feet. That's why I sometimes leave behind wet footprints on Lucy's clean floors. That's just me sweating. The rest of me is covered with this insulating coat that keeps me warm in the winter and cool in the summer, but doesn't allow my skin to perspire. Here's what I usually do. I pant like this. Dogs rely on panting to control most of our temperature regulation. When dogs pant, we evaporate moisture from our tongues, nasal passages, and the lining of our lungs, cooling ourselves as air passes over the moist tissue. I'm also exchanging the hot air in my lungs with cooler air. This usually works pretty well. But sometimes, when I get really hot, Lucy helps me out with a cool towel, some delicious crunchy ice cubes, or, if I'm lucky, a dip in the pool. Stay cool.
It's a thermometer. And the thermometer is telling us that it's very hot today. It's over 110 degrees Fahrenheit and over 40 degrees Celsius in the sun.
Oh, it sure is warm this morning.
It's a scorcher, all right.
It is so hot, you can call me a hot dog without the bun.
That's funny, George, but I'm almost too hot to live.
I am too hot to even think.
I kind of like it when it's hot because that means it's summer. And I love having fun and the good old summertime.
Katie, you always have such a positive attitude, and I really appreciate that. George, let's dry our sweat, drink some water, and join Katie in something fun and summery.
And cool?
And cool, and I think I know just the thing.
Oh? Is it ice cream? Or napping in the air conditioning?
Unfortunately, we don't have ice cream or air conditioning, but we do have all the right stuff to make our own ice pops. Yum! Let's head inside and get making.
We are making strawberry, orange, mango popsicles, and we have everything we need right here. We have a cup of strawberries, a cup of frozen thawed mango, a cup of orange juice, which we will actually cut in half, and I'm using a popsicle mold to make things easy, and a blender, and you know what that means. Ask a grown-up for help. Let's get blending. Last, it goes in the freezer for 4 hours.
Banda, I think they are ready. Come on.
Wow, those look so yummy. As Big Fred says, bon appetit.
Toby, look at that sign. It says, "Want to get chilly? This way." Should we check it out?
I'd love to be chilly right now, Otto. Let's go for it.
A shark? What are you doing here?
Ah, my first customers of the day.
We were looking for something chilly. That's what the sign said.
Well, first of all, somebody needs to ring this bell. Welcome, gentlemen. It's time for chili.
A shark, are you sure selling hot chili on a hot day is the best business decision you can make?
Well, it's food, so...
Shark, if we wanted a bowl of chili right now, could we take a hot one to go?
You can have a can.
Shark, what makes it 6-alarm chili?
It's full of peppers and plankton and fire.
Any fish in there?
Of course, one large stingray.
Oh, do we have room for this, Toby?
I mean, I guess we can take it home once we cool down. We could eat some of this 6-alarm chili.
I see the can is lovely, but, you don't have a bowl of chili that I could take with me?
What more could you want than a nice, hot, steaming pile of chili in a can?
All right, will do.
Here, allow me. Well...
Thanks, Shark. I really hope your chili business works out.
Oh, it will be just fab.
Who serves chili on a hot day?
Well, he is a shark.
I guess so.
But Otto, that gives me an idea. If we eat something hot, like chili on a hot day, it'll make us even more warm, so maybe what we need to do is find something cold to eat. Like something sweet and creamy, and you can hold it in your hand, and it's delicious and cold, and when you eat it, you just feel so wonderfully refreshed.
Toby, I don't know what you're talking about, but at this point, I'm in.
Then let's go, bud.
When I feel sad and down on my luck, nothing is right and I'm feeling stuck. That's when I know no need to feel low. I hear the bells of the ice cream truck. Choice to be made when the truck stops. Strawberry shortcake or giant bun pop. Couple of quarters and my last buck. I hear the bells of the ice cream truck.
I have ice cream sandwiches and chocolatey eclairs.
Both will make me feel like I'm walking on air. If that doesn't sound good, maybe this sounds nice. Popsicles, fudgesicles, and lemon ice. Icy snow cone and even drumsticks. I can eat them real fast or just take a lick. Choco taco and even push up. I hear the bells of the ice cream truck.
Friday night took care of my weekday blues. I woke up at breakfast and read the news. I'm feeling relaxed, refreshed and renewed. But I feel like there's something I'm forgetting to do.
Hey, Toby, the show's about to start.
Oh yeah, it's a Saturday show. 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 It's a Saturday show.
Huh? What's that? No.
Questions.
Hey, Otto, do you want to go to the library with me? Oh, hey, Toby. I don't think I have any books to pick up. Why are you going? I just need to pick up some story time supplies. Do you want to ride along? Sure. Can I see your office and pick out some picture books? Books, yes. Office, I guess so. Why would you want to see my office? I don't know. Isn't that where you spent most of your time before I got here? Kind of. I mean, when I was at the library. I didn't live there though. Are you ready to go? Yep, I'll grab my book bag, and Toby, can you introduce the word of the day? Sure can, OT. Is everybody ready for Kashi and Christopher and the word of the day?
And so we were on the train for 3 days, and when we got to the end, they couldn't find our luggage. But in the end, they actually did, and so it was a great train trip.
Wow.
Did you like my story?
I really liked your story.
Does anybody have any questions?
Oh,
Christopher.
yeah. You know, I like trains.
Oh, so that's great, Christopher, but do you have any questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, I had a pet goat when I was a little kid.
Oh, I like goats. But Christopher, do you have any questions about my story?
I like yellow.
Oh, so a question is when you ask me something about my story that you want to know more about. You want to try again?
Oh, I do. Yeah, I think I got it this time. When did your story take place?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. This was 2 years ago.
Wow, that's great. You know, we are talking all about questions in this issue.
We are.
Not an issue.
This isn't a book. It's not a magazine.
In this episode of the Saturday Show. Kashi, would you like to activate Lexi?
Oh, yes. Mwah.
Well, let's see what it says. Kashi, can you read this?
Well, I'm good at sounding things out. It says interrogative, but I don't know what that means.
That's right. Interrogative is another word for a question.
Oh.
That's right. Listen, are you ready for the summer game code?
Yay, summer!
Okay, here it is. It's 3 letters.
Wow.
That's not very many, Kashi.
No.
And it's a question word, but it's not a WH question word.
Oh.
So if you think you know the answer, you can go to play.aadl.org for... That's right. An exclamation. See you next time.
Bye.
Is this where you park, Toby? Is this where you get in the library, Toby? Do you have special VIP access? Oh, what is this? Look at all of this. What is this stuff? Oh, is this your office, Toby? I've got to gather some stuff up here, Otto. Do you want to go pick out your picture books? Yeah, I think so. Although I'm still waiting on some answers. But which way are the picture books? They're over in the corner near the garden. Are you gonna need any help? Nope, I can get them myself. When you're done, will you meet me out there? Will do, Otto. All right. Hi, Amanda. How are you?
Hi, Otto. I'm good. How are you today?
Oh, I'm fantastic. I'm looking for some good picture books to read. Do you know any good ones?
Otto, do you know how much I love picture books?
Maybe not exactly, but what would you recommend today?
I know a lot of good picture books. We've got some right over here. Would you like to take a look with me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh my! Thank you for the assistance. The shelves were getting pretty tight in there.
Who are you?
Yeah, who are you?
I like you two already. questions galore.
Yeah, but like, who are you? How did you get here? Do you live in the library? What were you doing on the shelf?
I, young turtle, am Wonder W. Wonder. Asking questions is my game. And also, answering questions. I do that too.
I don't get it.
Have you ever been asked by a grown-up to stop asking so many questions? Well, I'm here to say that today's your day, and we are going to ask away. We're gonna ask who, we're gonna ask what, we're gonna ask when, we're gonna ask where, and we're gonna ask why. Why? Because fun is how we learn. We're little sponges, absorbing the world around us. How else will we find out?
How many minutes in a day?
Who is the tallest person?
When is the next full moon? What do worms eat?
Why is the sky blue?
Where are my pants?
Well, I'm here to say that today's your day, and we are going to ask away. We're gonna ask who, we're gonna ask what, we're gonna ask when, we're gonna ask where, and we're gonna ask why. We're gonna ask who, we're gonna ask what, we're gonna ask when, we're gonna ask where, and we're gonna ask why. Why? Anybody? Why? Do you know why? Do you know who? When? Anybody? When does this song end? Anybody?
This is too much. I feel like I'm in an alternate dimension. Where are we?
One of the first 5 W questions right off the bat. How serendipitous. Where are we, you ask? Where?
Did you say where, as in werewolf?
I said where, as in a place or setting. Isn't werewolf spelled differently?
It is, but where and where sound so much alike, which is why I am here. By the way, where am I?
Questions, questions, questions. Otto, you can answer this one.
I suppose so. Mr. Werewolf, we are at the downtown library, in the picture book section. Have you never been here before?
I've been here and there. Whereabouts did you say we were?
The downtown library. Didn't you hear me?
The library? What sorts of things go on here?
The library is a wonderful place for inquisitive souls like yourself, Mr. Werewolf. There's answers galore.
Where?
Why, in books and songs, stories and crafts. The library is a source of infinite answers. All you have to do is ask.
Did you say books?
I did indeed.
Well, where would a werewolf like myself find books?
Where books?
Perhaps you'd like a book about maps? Or Michigan? Or Ann Arbor? Or libraries?
Oh, could I take home all 4?
Absolutely. Here we go.
Thank you so much. Huh. Now, where should I read these books?
Well, we figured out where. I do hope the werewolf enjoys those books.
Yeah, that's all fine and dandy, but Wanda, what are you doing here?
Another W question. What?
What is it? Well, I'm not sure what it is. It's got buttons. It's got sliders. There's knobs you can turn and places to plug in. What is it? Otto, this is a mixing board outside of its case. You would plug instruments and microphones in up here. You can change the volume down here. You can mute or solo different tracks and instruments with these buttons and make the sound different by turning these knobs. It's something that DJ Mars would use when making music. And that's what it is.
Okay, Wanda, you're here to help us ask and answer questions. Are we asking the right ones?
Who's asking questions?
Who? Hello, Alfred.
Hello, Wanda. How are you today?
Wonderful as always.
You two know each other?
Of course we do. No one asks more questions than Sir Alfred Hoover.
I just came back from visiting my friends at the Leslie Science Center.
Did you see Brian? He was going there on a field trip.
My friends did say they had an appointment for an interview. Perhaps they're one and the same.
Hey folks, we're here at the Leslie Science and Nature Center. We're joined today by David. David, thank you so much for being with us here today. And we're joined by another very special guest here who I would love to know more about, so I have some questions for you. My first question, who is this wonderful creature?
Yep, so this is the barred owl. You may have guessed it was an owl already by all the features that you see. One of the big primary characteristics that people see right away with owls are these huge eyeballs. So we knew it was an owl, but it's a very specific, special kind of owl called a barred owl. B-A-R-R-E-D, barred. And that's because of these bars or stripes that you see on his belly. And that helps him camouflage in his habitat.
And what do they like to eat?
Barred owls are one of my favorite owls to talk about food because barred owls will eat almost anything. They're kind of like the garbage disposal of the owl world. So most owls will all eat a little furry animals like mice and voles and other rodents. Totally gonna eat that, for sure, barred owls will. But they also love to hunt around a little bit of water, so you'll see them sometimes eating stuff like crayfish.
When are barred owls most active?
So you may have heard this already, but owls are known to be nocturnal, and that's primarily nocturnal, mostly nocturnal, right? There are some owls that are active during the daytime, but most of them are active at night while we're sleeping.
Where is a barred owl's natural habitat?
Yes, so this barred owl would be found in deep woodlands, so deciduous forests with a bunch of trees and to cover them up and help them camouflage. Now, you're going to find them in the United States, on the eastern half of the United States, all over the place. But they've also started moving into the Pacific Northwest region of the United States and up into Canada.
Lastly, why are barred owls so important to their ecosystems.
So it's important for us to remember that nature is about balance. And that means that we need all kinds of different animals and plants. The biggest thing we need to remember is to make sure that we protect the homes of animals, and that protects the animals themselves.
Well, David, thank you so much for joining us here today and for teaching us more about barred owls. I can't wait to learn even more about them and about all the other amazing creatures here at the Leslie Science and Nature Center.
That's great. Thanks for having me. We'll see you soon.
Okay, Wanda, I have a question for you. Why do some questions go unanswered? Like, what's with all those weird things in Toby's office?
Well, Otto, why is one of the most open-ended questions there is. But you are getting the hang of this.
Another W question. Why?
Hey, it's a shark. As inquisitive humans, you're likely often wondering, why? Well, the answer is actually quite simple. It's because, first of all, this light switch goes on and off. Then, water boils. And then, the way this tree bark feels. Then, this cable gets plugged in. And then, you play the slots. And then, the toilet flushes. Then, this kitty cat sniffs me. Then, this sandwich. Then, this car horn honking. Well, then last, but most important, this finger bends. And that's why.
Well, that was fun.
Wanda, how long are you going to be here?
As long as I'm needed. By my calculations, there's only one W question left.
I wonder when Toby is going to be done. I hope he doesn't miss all of this awesomeness.
Otto, my friend, you found the last one. When?
Did you know that you don't need a clock to tell time? With just a few simple household instruments like a paper plate, a pencil, a straw, and a compass if you have one. Oh, and the sun. You're gonna need the sun. That's pretty important. With those objects, you can make the oldest known instrument for telling time, the sundial. If they are correctly placed, sundials can be used to tell time accurately down to the minute.
So why don't you gather those supplies we talked about? Plus a ruler might be handy, and I like to have a little ball of clay or fun tack to hold your straw in place. First, you want to find the center of your plate. And once you have marked the center, you are going to use the sharp end of your pencil to carefully poke a hole into the center of the plate. And then you will put the straw into the hole so that it's sticking straight up. You can put the little piece of clay on the bottom if you want to hold the straw. You are going to use a ruler, and you can take the straw out to do this part. Use a ruler to draw a straight line from the hole to the top of the plate, and then at the other end of this straight line, you are going to write the number 12 along the edge of your plate. this number 12 is going to anchor the rest of your clock. Just before noon, you're going to want to take your sundial outside and use your compass to find north. I used the compass on my phone, so I placed a rock where north was. And then you are going to put the line with the 12 on the top facing north. You'll see that the sunlight is making a different line with the straw, and that is where noon is. So right at 12 o'clock, slide your plate around so that the line with the 12 is lined up by the line made from the straw. The straw in this case is acting as the gnomon, which is the pointer on a sundial, and the sundial stays in place. The gnomon's shadow changes position as the sun moves through the sky over the course of the day. Come out every hour throughout the afternoon and use the gnomon's shadow to mark each hour on the plate. You'll have to return in the morning to mark the remaining hours on the other side of noon, for example 10 and 11 a.m. Then your sundial will be ready to tell time whenever the sun is out. Your sundial will tell time using the sunlight. Just like the hour hand moves around a clock face and points to the current hour, sundial shows the current hour with a shadow. It's interesting to note where the lines are drawn on your plate. It doesn't always look exactly like a clock.
Well, it was wonderful to meet you all. There are more questions to be asked, but I have answers to give elsewhere. Until next time, my friends.
Hey Amanda. Hey Otto. Otto, did you get your books? Are you ready to go? Toby, you're never gonna believe what just happened.
Friday night took care of my weekday blues. I woke up, had breakfast, and read the news. I'm feeling relaxed, refreshed, and renewed. But I feel like there's something I'm forgetting to do.
Hey, Toby, the show's about to start.
Oh yeah, it's a Saturday show. 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 It's a Saturday show.
Bugs and friends.
What a beautiful day, Fred. I'm so glad you joined us out here camping. Sure enough, Toby. I needed to take a little vacation. Some time off does a bullfrog good. I agree. I wonder where Otto went, though. You guys, come here. You gotta see this. Is everything okay? Yeah, everything's fine, but come here and look at this. All right, Otto, this better be good. You guys gotta see this anthill. It's so cool. Wait, Otto, you like bugs? Yeah, bugs and insects are really awesome. They're great to have around. I have to agree. I love snacking on flies, but I also believe that bugs do a lot of good. I don't know. These ants are so cool. See the network of tunnels they dug? How ingenious. Well, I don't really mind bugs. I just don't really want to be their best friend.
Oh, Toby, come on. I bet if we ask the crew to tell us more about bugs, that you'll be comfortable in no time.
Is that what we're gonna do for today's show?
You betcha, bud. First, let's send it out to the crew for the word of the day.
Hey, Allison, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Great. You know, I was gonna film word of the day here, but Kashi's out of town at the seaside.
Oh, how nice.
Could you help me with that?
Oh, definitely.
Great. Well, you know, we're talking all about bugs in this episode. And I was wondering what kind of bug you would be if you could be anything.
Huh, what kind of bug I would be?
Yeah.
I would like to be a bumblebee, because they're fuzzy and they're cute and they go bzzz. What would you be?
I think I would like to be a pill bug, because they love to eat the strawberries in my garden.
That's awesome.
Well, do you want to do the word of the day with me?
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right.
Boop.
Well, let's see what it says.
Huh, antenna?
Right, antenna. You know what antennas are? That's right. Some people call them feelers, and they help an insect learn about its environment.
Yeah, they can sense touch and smell and taste.
That's right, and sometimes even different chemicals.
Wow.
Well, are you ready to do the summer game code?
Yeah, sounds fun.
Okay, here it is. Why don't you tell us how many letters it is?
It is 6 letters.
That's right. And this word means a kind of silky casing for insect eggs to hatch in. And it's also a very famous Ron Howard movie. So if you think you know the answer, you can go to play.aadl.org for
big points.
That's right. Well, good luck, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Otto, I'm not sure that made me any more comfortable.
Well, if that didn't melt your heart, then the story of Ernest the Slug will.
Ernest the Slug?
Yes, my friend. Listen closely to the tale of Ernest the Slug.
Hi, I'm Jackie, and I love bugs, worms, slugs, and all invertebrates. I'm here to tell the story of Ernest, the very lucky, very adventurous slug. One rainy fall day in 2020, my friend Ellie sent me a picture of a creature she found living on her new houseplant. I told her it was a slug, so Ellie released it outside. But later that afternoon, I saw another picture and I realized this slug was different. It had come from the greenhouse where the plant was raised. I was worried the slug wouldn't survive outdoors in Michigan. I did some research and I learned that this species of slug is found farther south in the United States in a warm and humid climate. I told Ellie the bad news. A few hours later, Ellie and I and our 2 husbands searched Ellie's big garden. It was raining and the Michigan slugs were out and about. Just as I was ready to give up, I lifted a piece of bark and there was the slug from the greenhouse. I decided to name him Ernest. Michigan was too cold for Ernest to live outside. I wanted him to live in a warm house and enjoy the rest of his life in comfort, with lots of fresh veggies and clean places to hide. But I soon learned that Ernest had other plans. Ernest moved into my home in October and he settled right in. At first he stayed in a temporary enclosure without much space to roam. I fed him many different foods to learn what he liked the most, and I bought him a tiny fairy house to sleep in during the day because slugs don't like to be in the sunlight. Ernest was soon thriving on a plentiful, healthy diet. Before long, he found himself upgraded to a spacious slug mansion. Ernest loved cucumbers, spirulina, mushrooms, and green beans. He woke up every night around 10 p.m., ate a big dinner, and roamed his mansion, then returned to sleep inside his fairy house before the sun came up. Sometimes he enjoyed his cucumber so much he slept in it. Ernest celebrated the holidays with our family, but shortly after the new year, he had a surprise for all of us. One night while I was cleaning, I found tiny clear orbs buried under the soil. Ernest had laid eggs. Soon, newly hatched slugs, which are colorless and smaller than a grain of rice, would be sharing Ernest's home. I was so excited about the babies. And yet I was sad because I knew this meant that Ernest and his family needed a more appropriate habitat. By the end of April, Ernest's babies were almost half of their adult size. The slugs like to sleep together, so they would pick one fairy house and squeeze into it, but I knew they would soon outgrow their space. I planned a trip to take Ernest and his babies where it is warm and humid so they could live outdoors. I found a spot where his species was documented by biologists, and then I used citizen science maps to learn where they had been sighted. On May 6th, my husband and I, Ernest, and a bucket of baby slugs drove to a forest near the Appalachian Mountains. We hiked until we found a safe spot where other slugs had been recorded. I settled the slugs under a big rock amid fallen trees, left one more meal of cucumber, and tucked them in to sleep until the sun went down. I like to imagine the slugs did what they did every night. Ernest and the babies woke up around 10 p.m. They ate a big dinner and they roamed, but this time they found a whole forest to explore with a promise of adventure ahead. And instead of going back to sleep inside their fairy house, the slugs would find a nice spot in a rotten log, snuggle up with each other like they always did, and go to sleep as the sun came up. And that's the story of Ernest, the very lucky, very adventurous slug.
What do you call a bossy pill bug? Give up? A controlling bully.
Okay, Otto, that one got me. I think I'm ready to learn a little bit more about bugs, but how do we go about doing that?
We could go bug hunting.
Bug hunting?
Yeah, bug hunting. You see, most bugs are itty bitty, but if we sharpen our senses, look carefully, and listen a little bit, we can find some awesome bugs right around here.
Fred's right. I bet if we look really carefully, we can find some really cool bugs. What do you say, Toby? I like it. Let's go.
Katie, what are you doing with all those bugs inside the house?
Oh, George, they're not alive. Amanda was cleaning out her closet and she found her old insect collection.
In the house?
Yeah.
In the closet?
Yeah.
But why, Katie? That's bugs.
She has these from when she was studying to be a science teacher.
Oh, well, I guess that is kind of cool. So we can see and study them up close and not get stung or have them crawl all over the couch.
Yeah, that's what I think too. I mean, look how pretty they are.
Some are so big. I think my favorite is the monarch butterfly.
I like how she has so many cicadas.
Yeah, this is really cool. We should ask Mana to keep these out so we can spend time figuring out what they all are. There's so many.
I like that idea. And you know Mana will say yes. She loves it when we spend time learning together.
She does. Hey, let's go find a snack and find Manda and ask her about these bugs.
Okay, let's do it.
What is it? This appears to be a really big piece of wood, like the trunk of a tree. But what are those grooves? They go back and forth and all over the wood. They're not very deep, but they're everywhere. What are they?
I saw the most attractive and in love spider couple the other day. They were walking arm in arm. In arm, in arm, in arm, in arm, in arm, in arm.
That bug hunt was a lot of fun, Toby. Do you want to show everyone what kind of bugs we found?
I sure can, Otto.
Okay, so here's what we found on our bug hunt. This one looks like flying pocket lint, but it's actually an alder aphid, in its flying form, of course. This is an orchard spider. It's got great colors, green and yellow, and it's shiny. Oh, and we got to see it catch an ant that fell off the cabin. Here's some ants. They're brownish colored. There are so many types of ants that it's hard to figure out which kind these are unless you had them under a microscope. Still pretty cool. This dude is a Neandra beetle, the not so long longhorn beetle. It was the biggest bug we found on our hunt. Fred wanted me to pick him up and move him, but I said no way. This is the horned passalis. Sometimes he's called the patent leather beetle because his body looks like shiny leather. He was chill. And these little fellas are common pill bugs, aka roly-polies. I think they're my new favorite bug.
That sure was fun. But, Otto, what if I didn't have any bugs around and I wanted to attract them? What do I do then? Are you trying to attract them to eat them, Fred? Yeah, I mean, not just to look at. Well, Lucy can show us one way that you can make a bug hotel. Check it out.
Lucy, dear, you were so kind to invite me to your home. I was wondering if we had room for any other winged creatures.
Well, Clarissa, who did you have in mind?
Well, as you know, bugs of all types play an important part in our ecosystem, and I would love to provide an inviting habitat for them.
What if we created an inviting space for them outside the home? That way they could sort of come and go, like a bug hotel.
A bug hotel? That sounds like quite a resplendent urban dwelling for our crawling, flying, and buzzing friends.
I know! And easy to make. Let me show you what we need to get started. The first step is to gather all sorts of natural materials from outside to provide interesting spaces in your hotel. Things that bugs near you enjoy, such as bark and twigs, moss, bamboo, pine cones, exciting spaces to crawl in.
Like this?
That's exactly right. Then look around your house for something to be the hotel, like an empty plastic bottle, or a milk carton, a clay jar, an empty can, anything that can hold all the exciting natural materials that you found. Before you start assembling your bug hotel, you want to make sure your container is clean and dry, and then get started filling it however you like. Think about what would be fun for bugs. There is no right or wrong. It might take a while to see how you can get all your pieces to fit in there. It's sort of like a puzzle. Once you've created a hotel that you like, put it somewhere outside, like your garden, yard, or balcony. Check on it in a few days to see if anyone has moved in.
These grooves were left by the larva of the emerald ash borer. Emerald ash borers are an invasive species of bug that were first found in Michigan in 2002. The larvae dig themselves into the bark of ash trees and eat, making it hard for the trees to move water and nutrients. These logs, covered in grooves, lived where the Traverwood Branch Library now stands, And when the library was built, the ash trees were incorporated into the library itself. How cool. That's what it is.
Hey folks, I'm here at Bluebird Meadows in Mayberry State Park. This is one of my favorite places in the world to be on a muggy summer's evening because at nightfall here, the air comes alive and literally sparkles with thousands of fireflies. This is a perfect spot for them because there's a lot of tall grasses, bushes, trees for them to take shelter in during the day. And when they come out at night, not much other light to compete with. There is also a nice green froggy bog just through these woods behind me, and fireflies love marshy woodland edges like this one. It's kind of hard to capture just how many there are here at night, so trust me when I say this is something you're going to want to experience for yourself to really see how truly beautiful it is. And just like all beautiful things in this world, there's some very cool science behind it.
Fireflies are also known as lightning bugs or glowworms, but they're actually a type of beetle, and they display a fascinating trait of nature called bioluminescence, which means something like life lighting up. In other words, they can make their own light. This in itself is unusual for a land-dwelling species. Most bioluminescent species on Earth live in the dark depths of the ocean, where other natural light can't reach. Another unusual aspect of bioluminescence is what the Greek philosopher Aristotle referred to as its cold light, because unlike most other forms of light production, these little life lamps create practically no heat in the process, making this a nearly 100% efficient form of energy conversion. How are they able to do this? Through a controlled chemical reaction in their bodies. The combination of oxygen and a mix of certain types of molecules and enzymes that are common to all known bioluminescent life forms. These reactions occur in photocyte cells in their abdomens and are the source of that lovely green-yellow glow. There are about 2,000 different species of fireflies all over the world, and each different species has its own distinct pattern to its flashes. A specific signal it uses as a blinking beacon in the night to find and communicate with other fireflies of the same species. So this light show is not only beautiful, it's also an important evolutionary development that's crucial to their survival. And to see it, sometimes all you need to do is turn off your lights and step outside.
Hey, I got a joke for you.
Okay, what is it?
What do you call? What does a bee chew?
I don't know.
Bumble gum.
And now, please enjoy this B-roll.
So, Toby, do you feel more comfortable about bugs? About how they work and how important they are to every ecosystem?
I sure am, Otto. Thanks to you and Fred, my worries about bugs have disappeared.
That's really great, Toby. It sure is.
All right, come on, you two. I think I saw a butterfly go that way.
Well, that's our show for today. We hope you enjoyed our bug adventure. If you'd like more info, you can go to aadl.org/The Saturday Show. And if you'd like to drop us a line, you can email tss@aadl.org. Until next time.
Are you guys coming or what?
Keep on buzzing. Bye.
Friday night took care of my weekday blues. I woke up, had breakfast, and read the news. I'm feeling relaxed, refreshed, and renewed. But I feel like there's something I'm forgetting to do.
Hey, Toby, the show's about to start.
Oh, yeah. It's a Saturday show. 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 It's a Saturday show.
Fashion!
This is so cool, Toby. Look at all this stuff.
It is cool, dude. Do you want to go look at some records?
Oh, that one.
Okay, we can get it.
Hey, Toby, check this out.
How about this, Otto? Can you see me?
You know, Toby, trying on these clothes gives me an idea.
Oh yeah? What's that?
We should get the crew together and have a real live fashion show.
That'd make a good episode. Plus, it'd be really, really fun.
Yeah, we can have music and a runway and lights and all that jazz. It'll be the show of the century.
Love it, dude. Here, why don't you introduce the word of the day, and I'll call the crew.
All right, everybody, stay tuned for the word of the day.
Hi, Clarissa. I was just walking by and wondering what you were doing. Is that Lexi? How did...
Lexi? Yes, Christopher and Koshi asked me to do the word of the day, likely due to my fashionable plumage. But I'm not sure how to make Lexi work.
Oh, okay. I think I can help. There should be something on the side.
This?
I'd say you got it. Do you know what it says? It says couture, which means...
Oh yes, couture from the French, meaning the business of...
Welcome back to the September 18th, 2023 Ann Arbor District Library Board of Trustees meeting. Have we taken attendance again? Thank you, Karen. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion on the agenda? All in favor, say yes.
Yes. Yes.
The agenda is approved. Moving on to the consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Okay, all in favor, say yes.
Yes.
All right, thanks. Do we have anybody for citizens' comment today? Okay, so seeing nobody, we will move along to our financial reports.
Okay. We're going to start today on the page labeled 48 of your packet. That is actually the August financials, because we did not meet in August. So this packet includes both the July and August statements. We'll just skip to August. These are draft financials because they are not final until the audit has been approved, because that might affect our starting points. So there could be some adjustments to these. So these are still draft financial statements. There's some new charts in here from our new finance manager, Cindy
color.
Richmond.
Yeah, very nice.
That first chart is our cash balance over time. The red line is the last fiscal year. The green line is the current fiscal year. The blue line is 2 fiscal years ago. So this helps you see where we are in our cash position compared to our 2 previous years. And it's very similar to where we were 2 years ago. And that's mostly a factor of what early in the year expenditures are, as well as how much cash we were carrying from the previous year. So our fund balance, our undesignated fund balance, stands at $7.8 million as of August 31st. And Cindy notes that would fund approximately 4.5 months of operations, which which is really about as low as you want it to go, because you never know what's going to happen with taxation, tax revenue, the general, for an organization like ours that's relatively independent, between a quarter and a third is kind of what you want to save in your rainy day fund. Then the next chart there, the fund balance shows actual or free fund balance there. You can see very clearly between August and September, the blue line is when we bought the plaza. So that's where that big fall off in the blue line is when we were making that investment. But you can see in our green position here, we're in pretty good shape as far as our fund balance goes. However, after the audit is completed, we will be bringing a resolution to move last year's operating surplus into the capital fund, which removes it from the undesignated fund balance, not from our cash position overall, but removes it from the undesignated fund balance, because then it's designated for capital projects. So under revenue and expenditures, you can see our revenues are 16.7% of budget after 16.6% of the fiscal year. That's fairly normal for us because almost all of our money comes from tax revenue. Very rarely will you have a donation or something like that. However, I did want to point out that this week we received a $10,000 check from the Friends of the Library, who are doing quite well.
Wow.
So thank you to Rachel, our bookshop manager is here. Thank you to the Friends for that donation. Year-to-date expenditures are 16% of budget after 16.6% of the fiscal year. That's where you want to be, a little bit behind your percentage of the year. And so far, that gives us a year-to-date increase of net assets of $146,000. That's just our operating surplus so far today. You turn on to the next page, you can see our pie chart, a new pie chart showing where the money goes. And most of it goes to personnel, as you would expect for an organization like this. And those are the highlights there. I want to then bring your attention to page 52. So the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes. Again, we're 16.6% through the fiscal year. So when you go look down at expenditures, anything that's over 16% means it's running a little ahead. So one thing I want to draw your attention to, first of all, accounting audit, that would be expected because that's something that happens at the beginning of the year. But the next line, building rental, 32%. The reason why is when we were putting this together, there's a change to GASB, the General Accounting Standards Board, that happened a couple years ago that requires you to book your unpaid, your not yet paid lease payments as debt. So like then when you make your rent payments, you're actually retiring that debt, okay? It doesn't actually make any difference to us from a budgetary standpoint, but you have to account for it in a different way. We didn't factor that into that line for this year, so that's why it's running basically twice as much as it should. However, we will bring you a budget adjustment later in the year after we've got a couple of months seeing how this goes. And it doesn't actually impact other expenditures because it's offset elsewhere in the budget, because it's not really money that we're paying. It's just you have to call it debt retirement and account for it as if you were retiring for debt. Because you signed the lease, you owe that money, you owe those future lease payments, okay? So we'll be making adjustment to that, but it's not because rent is running crazy ahead. It's just because that's an accounting trick that we made a mistake and missed. Any questions about that part of it? All right, also running down, you can see library programming at 22%. That makes sense because, that's legal expense, which we've been using our attorneys recently because we've been negotiating a contract. Also, you can see then materials, 25%. That's another one that has front loading because a lot of our subscription databases get paid at the beginning of the year. As well as every July, we have to buy all the stuff that came out in June that we didn't buy when we were finishing up the fiscal year. And then software licenses, the same thing. A lot of those are front loaded. So those are all the ones that are running ahead. Otherwise, overall, we're in very good shape. Any questions or comments?
I just, as a tool, and we talked about this many, many years ago, and I remember receiving an explanation that
Sure.
it wasn't possible, but you have an internal sense of, so this just divides everything by 12 for the year.
Yes.
Could be, I think at one point I'd asked the question about whether or not there could be an additional column or sort of set of documents that would help us that would externalize your internal logic, meaning
Yes.
instead of dividing by 12, you say that line by June will be spent 70% as opposed to everything being equal, which it's not.
Right.
So I don't know if that's possible to do, because I know we have, with our sort of governmental accounting standards, we're sort of, that we have to kind of follow quite rigorously and rigidly. Yeah. If that's something that we could do, especially as we're onboarding a new finance person, just to kind of think about timing.
Yes.
That isn't equal.
So
basically.
she's kind of moving in
Yeah.
that direction with that first chart.
Yeah,
And
that's
she
what I was
would
thinking.
like to basically develop a normal profile of percentage for each line.
Right.
So that each year you could say, usually we're at 30% this time of year, and look, we're at 28, so we're a little bit better than usual, as opposed to it just being the 12th.
Divided by 12, right,
Yes,
which doesn't
exactly.
really tell us very much about the sort of pace of activities and
So
purchasing
she
and
plans
all
to do that. We've just finished our
That's
first year
great.
on the new accounting system, and we'll be moving in that direction.
Terrific.
But it may be until close to next summer when you actually start seeing it show up.
Yeah, that's fine. I think it's useful for you all because you have a lot of you who've been here a long time have an internal sense of that.
Right.
And we talk about it.
Yeah.
But it also just helps in terms of projecting and thinking over like multiple years of activity where you could understand there are going to be peaks, right?
Yep. Like if I'm pointing out the same thing every August, every September, then that's something we
Right.
should be encoding into the reports.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
These
thank you.
charts are great.
Any other comments or questions on the financials? The audit field work has completed. We should be receiving a draft audit in the next couple of weeks. And then we will proceed with scheduling a meeting first with the finance committee, and then they will probably come in November to present the audit to the board for acceptance. That's it for financials.
All right. Moving on to committee reports. We did have an executive committee meeting last week where we discussed the logistics of finalizing the contracts, which we voted on last week, Wednesday, and some of the things we've talked about in closed session, just planning around those conversations. But that was all I think we talked
And
about.
the policy that we're talking
Oh, and the policies that we're talking about today. Yeah, and also we will be working on some kind of sustainability policy that we don't have ready yet. That will be coming down the line a little bit. And thank you, Molly, who's been doing some work on drafting copy for that. And that is all from us, unless I missed something? No?
I think that was.
And so then moving on to the library report. Back to Eli.
Okay. So here's a library report for September 2023. Our stat of the month, of course, is a summer game wrap-up. So summer game 2023 was bigger than ever. It was really amazing to see the amount of growth we had this year. 25% more players than 2022. And we've not had a single year with that much growth ever. So that's been really great to see. And what's especially great to see is that we've had parallel growth and engagement. That it's not just you're getting some new players who are engaging lightly, the new players are engaging just as deeply as everybody else. So you can see badges and points right around the same percentage. And I'm not bothered to see slightly less engagement in the lawn and library codes because 1,300 codes around town is plenty. We really don't need more engagement with the lawn and library codes. That also though shows that is very much like a super player kind of thing, like the people who are really into the game or the people who put their yard signs out. So that's not surprising to see that grow a little bit more slowly. There was if you follow our Twitter, there was a really great patron thread sharing all of her favorite things that she saw in lawn codes over the summer. There were some really cute ones that I had not seen. The Very Hungry Caterpillar, where someone made a giant caterpillar out of their bush, is adorable. So lots of creativity happening around town. We're delighted to see that. Here's our top 4 badges. The number 1 most redeemed badge was the one that you get for seeing a bus. 6,000 people saw the bus and entered the code off the bus. Then Logjammer is the one that you get for logging your reading a couple times. And then the Super Summer Reader is one you get for completing the classic summer reading game. So it's great to see that even with so many players and so many other things to do, that Super Summer Reader is basically the summer game from 35 years ago, still going. And people still love that part of the game, so that's great. One thing we are planning to do next summer is expand the free book to adults as well, which we've never done before. And we're going to do that all with Fifth Avenue Press books. So that'll be a great way for us to also get some more readers on our local productions. And then 3,388 people found the code on the back of my t-shirt over the course of the summer. So that was pretty fun. And I now at the grocery store, instead of people saying, "Stop, turn around," they say, "You're wearing a different shirt." So that's nice to hear.
Your badge needs an update to your haircut.
Yes, it's true. Yeah, I need to get my avatar updated. So upcoming events. This Saturday, September 23rd, is a very special event that we're doing in partnership with the Summer Festival and UMA and several other local partners. Is Amal, Little Amal is this 12-foot puppet, is built by the Handspring Puppet Theater from South Africa. They're the same team that produced the Warhorse puppet for Broadway. And it's a really, really cool puppet. And it will be making 2 trips this Saturday, one just right around the time the football game ends on campus, ending at UMA. And then there will be a second walk that starts at 7 p.m. at the Farmers Market and walks up Fifth Avenue and ends here at the library. So I'll be waiting here at the library to receive little Amal when she arrives. It's a really cool project. We're so glad to see this come to Ann Arbor, and we're happy to be a part of it and serve as a venue. So don't miss that this Saturday. Then on Saturday, October 7th, we've got A2CAF Small and Indie Press. This is kind of the not really for kids A2CAF. It's not really adult oriented, but it's not really about kids comics the way that regular A2CAF is. Some of our guests include Jillian Tamaki, as well as Jaime Hernandez of Love and Rockets, who is just an absolute legend in the field. And Rosemary Valero O'Connell, we've partnered with her, and she's produced an original comic for Fifth Avenue Press that will be released as a free comic at A2CAF. It's called The Stranger, and it's about basically AI-powered robots that help people with dementia cope with loss. And it's a really provoking and beautiful story. So look forward for everyone to see that, and that will be available Saturday, October 7th, here at A2CAF Small and Indie Press. Then on Monday, October 9th is Staff Day, our annual Staff Day. All locations will be library closed, and staff will be gathering here. We'll be hearing from Dan Kelly, who is the director of the Delanis Center and the Shelter Association. We'll be having an introduction to mental health first aid, and then we'll have some tours of local organizations around, and as well as staff recognition. So that will be coming up on Monday, October 9th. Then on Sunday, October 15th, we've got 10 years of the Living Oral History Project, releasing our 10th phase of annual local history that we produced in conjunction with the African American Cultural and Historical Museum of Washtenaw County. This is a great partnership, been going on for a long time, and we're so glad to be able to continue expanding the primary source record in the way that this is. And then we are delighted to partner with A2SF to bring Reggie Watts to Ann Arbor on Thursday, November 2nd for a free event at the Middleton Theater, and tickets will be available starting September 26th. So very excited about that, looking forward to that. All right, our staff spotlight for this month is Ramon Maxwell, who's a finance clerk. He's been here for 4 years at AADL. What do you wish people knew about you? I have a strong creative passion for the arts, but I can use a 10 key with my eyes closed. And if you touched something that exists here at the library, it probably was ordered by Ramon. Ramon does a huge volume of work. I work with him a lot. For a long time, over the past year or so, he was the only finance person who worked at the library full time. So Ramon has done a great job keeping us going. Everybody loves working with him. And big thank you to Ramon for all of your work for the library. Just a quick update on AADL in the community. Our second grade visits resume at the end of this month. This is something we've been doing for a very long time. We already have 44 classes signed up to bring all their second graders to the library. They all get their library card. They get a little story time. They get to have a look around. It's a big deal and something we've been doing for a long time. And we still, almost every week, we hear from a patron who says that they got their library card for the first time when they came here for second grade visit. So it's always great to hear those. And we've already got 20 visits to range from 826 Michigan, partnership we've been doing with them for quite a number of years. And it's great to get some of the older kids in the building as well. So that's coming up. Here's just a note about our volunteer program. Even though it's most big focus of the volunteer program is packing all those summer game orders, the volunteer program does run year round, and it helps individuals, businesses, and organizations in the community give back through working with the library. Pictured here are volunteers from the Michigan Language Center helping out the Summer Game Spectacular on the top, and volunteers from Kapnick Insurance who helped out at Visions on the bottom. So our volunteer program is open both for corporate volunteers, as in this case, organizations, as well as individuals. There are individuals who volunteer at the archives. There's individuals who help just do shelf reading, which to make sure that all the books look like they're in the right place. So we have lots of different opportunities. Whenever we have big events, we always have some volunteers on hand to help out. So our volunteer program has been much appreciated. That's run by Shoshana Haran, who's in the marketing department. And so thank you to Shoshana for running a volunteer program. Here's our mention of the month from Candace Bull. We had an amazing AADL summer game themed birthday party for one of the summer game's biggest fans. And this was an adult birthday party at the library because, as I've always told you, the average summer game player is over 40. It is not a kid's activity. So this was a huge summer game fan. She's there in the middle in her black shirt. And they had her party at a meeting room at Westgate. And yes, I created a special code just for the party so that she could have a code for the party. It was a big surprise. Here's another mention. This is from Jessica Hobbs, who's a Masters of Urban Planning candidate at the Taubman School of Architecture and Urban Planning. Last year for my introductory planning theory course, I wrote a paper analyzing public libraries as some of the only indoor public third spaces. Internet has been down this week, and as a result, I've gotten to see Ann Arbor's libraries function as third spaces to many more students than usual. And it was true. During the Internet outage, downtown was as busy as a power outage. The door count was just crazy, just wonderful. And so we had a really great number of new people in the building, lots of new library cards. We also participated in the Main Street Ann Arbor's I love my Ann Arbor. I forget exactly what the program was called, but it was a program intended for back to campus people, and we got a lot of kids come and sign up their library card from on campus. So that was a great thing to be a part of. So that's going very well as well. Here's another quick mention. These are awesome photos of fruits, vegetables, and flowers grown by our patrons using seeds they got from the Seed Sampler program. So Marissa is one of the people who works on that program, and thank you, Marissa, for you and Elizabeth and everyone who worked on that team, all your work to get all those seeds out. That's been a really much beloved program, and people have been having a great time with those. All right, one more mention from Peter Hadeline. My wife and I really enjoyed the summer game during this first summer we've lived in Ann Arbor. I was on paternity leave and it gave me an excuse to go to all the libraries with my new son. Thanks for all your hard work. All the libraries here are spectacular and all the workers were very kind, even when I couldn't find a code. So adorable pictures of the baby with all of our mascots around the system. Okay, compliment of the month. Patron who's over 100 years old stopped by the desk at MCB to let us know that it had been a few years since she visited the library and she found the building to be very clean and noted that the accessibility facilities were particularly satisfactory. We always love to hear that across the desk. Then here's a contact us we got just about a month ago. Thank you for the tables and benches outside of Westgate Branch. These were new over the summer. My family members have been patrons of the AADL since 1985. It has been a huge and healthy contributor to quality of life for my 5 children, 4+ grandchildren, and many students throughout my 18 years teaching in Ann Arbor Public Schools. Our family still masks, but because of the outdoor seating, is able to enjoy books and Sweetwater streets on a relaxing visit in our neighborhood. So that was great to hear as well. Here's a complaint of the month. Why the reduction of computer stations in the downtown library? This is not a good way to save money. What we recently did on the second floor is our demand for public computing is so far down compared to where it was pre-pandemic, somewhere on the order of like a tenth or a quarter of what we used to have. So to give everybody a more comfortable environment, we removed half the computers so that everybody has more space because they were pretty close together. So now we just removed every other computer. If they're ever all in use, we'll put some back. So it's not a permanent capacity change. But I did explain to this patron, this was really not about money at all. It didn't save any money. It's just about giving more space to all the patrons who are using the computers. And that's why we made that change. And of course, we can put some more computers back, but I don't anticipate we'll ever be as busy for public computing again. At the same time, we are deeply committed to providing public computing indefinitely. Even if the demand drops to almost nothing, it's something that's very important for there to be in our society. And the library will always offer a public computing environment of some kind. It's just that clearly we will always be responsive to the actual demand levels when we balance how our facilities are used. And that's it for the report. Any questions?
I wanted to circle back around to AACHM, African American Cultural Historical Museum. Eli and I were at their 30th anniversary celebration about a little over a week ago, and it was just a wonderful gathering. And Debbie Covington and Joyce Hunter just have a lot of love for the collaboration between AACHM and the library. They are small, volunteer-led, very important organization. And it was just wonderful to receive that acknowledgement in that setting. Really, really special. And then, this is where my board life and professional life collide. But this little Amal project, I have been bird dogging for like a year and a half, and I'm so excited that it's coming to Ann Arbor. 3:30 on campus, 7 p.m. in the community. The sort of representation of a Syrian refugee girl, drawing awareness to what it means to be a refugee and immigrant, to not have a home, and it is homecoming weekend at U of M, so it's just like, it's all come together really beautifully. And as a person who's been involved, I am just enormously grateful to the Summer Festival and to the library for stepping in as just like the key leaders in this collaboration with the Museum of Art and the Arts Initiative at Michigan. It's just an amazing thing. And if the activations are anything like what I saw in New York last year, they'll be really moving and just pretty stunning and special. And we're just lucky to be able to have all the people to pull together. So thanks to you all.
Thank you, Jim. Any other comments or questions? Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Please.
My kids would like to know, what is the most number of badges that a person has gotten?
Well, occasionally, I don't know for sure if there was one this year or not, but it is not unheard of for someone to get all the badges.
It is possible.
I hesitate to say that because it is not a design goal of the game. We do not design the game intending that someone can get all the badges, but it's not unheard of for it to happen. This year, there were 226 badges. So I have not checked to see if someone got all of them, but typically the people at the top of the leaderboard are usually within a stone's throw of having gotten every single one. We do neither condone nor encourage such behavior. It's supposed to have something for everyone, not everyone for someone.
Awesome.
All right, anything else on the library report? All right. So moving to old business, we have Parkland Plaza facility upgrade update from Len.
Hello. Very exciting times. So, I'm busting. We're finally doing construction. So, we have all of our permits. We've completed most of the demo. Construction actually starts this coming Monday, where they'll be shoring the roof and cutting for footings, which kicks off our construction schedule. That's 6 to 8 months. I'm going to say 8 months, which puts us at that June 24 date for moving in. We put all the civil work that the South Township required out to bid. We've received that.
What do you mean by civil work?
Yeah, great question. This would be everything to bring us up to site plan code, which was landscaping, parking lot, ADA compliance on the sidewalk, which was quite a bit. The township asked us to put in the walk along Parkland Plaza plus an access walk from Parkland Plaza to the building. All good things for us. In the end, we would have wanted those things anyway. We also learned with that we can have street parking, therefore patrons can come to the building. So it's all good, but it does increase the scope. So that's everything exterior that was not approved as part of the original resolution you all approved. So we're going to have to, I'll bring that back to you in a few months when we know what that is. But that did go to bid. We had many responses. We're going through scope review right now. At the October meeting, I should have those numbers to bring to you all so you could release those to the contractors. It's going to be asphalt, concrete, fencing, and landscaping. I think those are the 4 categories for it. So it's not a lot, but it is an increase in the scope of work. So, but this puts us on the path. A lot's gone on out there in the last 3 weeks or so. We have one event scheduled for December 16th. Other than that, we're going to wrap up summer game prize packaging this week, I believe. So it's, I'm pretty excited. So it's a lot going on. Do you have any questions about it?
I do. When we talk about landscaping, is there like just like grass where what's the ballpark
Okay,
here?
so when our project triggered full site plan approval,
Yeah.
they reviewed the original site plan. And when the building was built, their drawings showed all types of landscaping, islands at the road, just a lot of stuff that never was put in, right? So we had to kind of bring that up to what the township would expect from a new building, basically. We meet the minimum requirements because you need 20% vegetation with the green space and the trees. We already have that. So it's not a lot. It's mostly, it's taking care of what was there. There's going to be Along the parking lot side, where the building is, there'll be new landscaping there. Across the front, there'll be some landscaping there. It's not a ton. I mean, we have drawings for it, but that's kind of where we're going through scope review, because there are some things we've seen where, landscape architect may choose a tree that's not a tree we would put in that location. So there's some of that, but it's bringing it up to what the township would require if we were building a new building, if that helps.
Oh, that's great. Shout out to Rain Gardens, just saying.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right.
Very good. Thank you all.
Don't go anywhere.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn, and you're up again.
I know, I'm just flipping the page.
So we're on to new business, and the first item of new business is a standby generator at Westgate.
Yes, so let's take a trip back in time. When we did the generator package at all the branches, Westgate was part of that. We VE'd that out because we went over budget a little bit. And Westgate is the easiest one to do. And in 2016, when we built out the space, we put the transfer switch in there. So we've always planned on West having a generator. But when we spent that money for all the branches, we kind of tackled that with who had the most outages. And it was always Mallett's Creek, then Pittsfield, then Trevorwood. So we tackled that project that way, where was the greatest need in the community. Since then, we've had outages at Westgate, and it's also our most popular location, so.
Particularly in an outage.
Yeah, during an outage, when West was closed for the 4 days and every other location was open, we were still hearing about it. Why can't West be open? And it was 4 days. Even though people could go very close to Pittsfield or another location, they still wanted their Westgate. It's always has the high door count. So with these now, what we're seeing longer outages, it is the least expensive branch to put in the standby unit. And we do have some of the infrastructure there. So I'd like to start the conversation, because if we were to commit to it, it's very different than a few years ago, pre-pandemic, when we did the original generator project. The lead time on these generators now is easy 12 months. Mm-hmm. You can get a small residential, but these big commercial units, I'm going to say 12 months, even if we committed, just to get the unit itself.
Yeah, just wanted to, that was so loud. Just wanted to uplift that. I've actually heard a number of community members who have voiced concern. I've been on a couple of threads with Eli, even on Twitter, just about this very same thing. But very seriously, I've heard a huge amount of attention to this. So I think this is a wonderful idea.
Yeah. I'm curious to know, if we ran generator, would it also, is it enough capacity to allow the coffee shop to stay open too?
That's our goal. I was out there last week. Eli and I had this conversation. One of the electricians we work with, he's going to take a look at it, because it's been since 2016, so we put that transfer switch in. That wasn't our project. We didn't hire the contractor to build out Westgate, if you remember. They worked through them all. So we want to verify that's the case, but I had a good conversation with them. The transfer switch that's there is actually a Kohler. I don't know if we would go with the Kohler generator or not, but I guess that doesn't matter. And when I looked out last week, there are 2 electrical rooms, so the coffee shop has its own receptacle and lighting panels, but there's not a transfer, help me out.
Transfer switch?
No, the transformer,
Yeah.
to bring the power down.
Yeah.
We only have one.
Okay.
So there's the big DT transformer outside, and then in the main electrical closet, there's one. If there were 2 small transformers to bring power down, we'd have to see, but yes, that's absolutely the goal.
Yeah, to really just keep it.
And I
fully
think it's doable, because one of the conversations we've had is there's 11 rooftop units. That's probably the biggest electrical load, and it would be cooling. So even if it's summer, we don't have to have all 11 on there.
Is this, and well, I don't know, because we have less autonomy at the site there, but again, moving towards more sustainable solutions broadly and a sustainability policy coming, is this an opportunity to look at an alternative? That's first question. That's question. Comment is, since DTE assures us that our grid will be upgraded by 2038, when I am 60, I'm sort of excited about having a generator at Westgate personally. I mean, it seems like a prudent decision, so.
Yeah. We have talked to several folks with the city. They've reached out to, I know, Arborland and Westgate to do solar arrays and try to get them involved.
Yeah.
we've always kind of drawn the line with, you know, public funding with private ownership. Now, Westgate's been great to deal with. They've given us approval to put a generator there. We don't.
Yeah.
It actually, of course, they're encouraging it because it helps them.
Better for them, yeah, right.
So,
For sure.
all those hurdles have already been taken care of. Like, if we choose to do it, we have a location, some of the infrastructure's there, and it's a great location for it. And it's by far the least expensive one. When we did the project a few years ago, when we were gonna remove one, they did not want us to remove this one because it's that easy to do, so.
Can we just clarify, so when we're talking about this generator, we would be running that off solar, question mark?
No, it would be natural
Okay.
gas.
Okay, so not sustainable.
No, I have a question that might get to some of this, so.
Well, and just to kind of, I'm sorry to do the history deep dive.
Right.
We had a very in-depth conversation about these generators when we started to install them and looked at some alternatives which weren't particularly feasible at the time. Yeah, that was about, what, 5 years ago?
Yes.
Yeah, so, you know, it's been something that we've kind of been circling around, but.
It was, I mean,
Yeah.
I was new on the board. And so it was 2020.
2020.
When we were getting these presentations. And at the time, none of the, like, it was I learned a lot about like water, battery stuff. And none of it was really feasible. And so I'm curious about, because I know that was a ton of effort and not that much time has passed. I'm wondering about like a sort of narrower look at more efficient, like even if it's still fossil fuel, if there are like more efficient options or other.
There's still the load demand. Right. And our goal is always to be that beacon, right? And it seems like we are more and more with these outages. And you just can't do that with solar. And then I think with the other part is this is private property.
Yeah.
I don't know how much we would invest into a for-profit mall.
Yeah.
I think that's, if we had a small building like this with less load than our branches, which this is, I think we could do maybe a combination, a smaller with some solar, it would be possible, but I don't know how far we should go when it's not our property and investing that way.
I actually, from a climate resiliency standpoint, actually worry more about longer outages during which fossil fuels actually become more important. So one of the things that I've I think I read too much science fiction because I've always told Len, it's like, we can't rely only on natural gas. When we buy these generators, we need to be able to have them convertible to propane in the event of an extended outage, like months. You know, that's not.
Oh my God, that is so science fiction.
It's not impossible to envision.
Not that crazy.
And I don't want us to be in the position of having the investment and the infrastructure, and there's no gas in the pipe either.
Yeah.
You know, so these all can be converted to, and we would be high on that list for community resiliency when they're starting to drive trucks of propane around to try to keep places online. Yeah, exactly. So unfortunately, resiliency and sustainability in this climate, there's not a lot of overlap between those two bubbles. But ideally, you never run your generators.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunately at this point not up to us. Yeah.
What's the lifetime of this usually?
We have an annual service agreement with Cummins with what we have. I mean,
great.
it's between 15 and 25 years.
That's
I mean, these are commercial big generators. It's a diesel engine, really. That's what it is. So if we're taking care of them, they'll last a long time. And that's kind of why we chose Cummins. There's a lot of manufacturers out there, but they've been around a long time. And in the emergency, that's usually what's on the trailer. When they're driving those to places that have, huge weather disasters, that's usually what comes in on the trailer. But it's part of our annual service agreement. So they come and they service them, but 15 to 25.
I know we need to do this, but it does break my heart when the power's out and the whole neighborhood's like, because it just feels like that's what caused the storm that made all the trees fall down. Like it's sort of this, we're just in this loop we can't escape.
There's a bright side.
Okay, tell me the bright side.
This generator would back up to I-94. So we wouldn't need an enclosure. There wouldn't be residential housing around that would hear it, and it would be quieter than the road during rush hour.
No, I mean, fair enough. And plus, like, if you put that in the scale or the context of how there's a giant freeway right behind it, like, why am I worrying about, like, it's like that meme about, recycling the soup can when there were those planes that were landing just to maintain their position during the pandemic? Okay. Thanks, Len.
This might be a good time to mention that Missy Stultz has invited me to a meeting with the MPSC, where the Michigan Public Service Commission representatives, toward the end of this month, to tell them about the unreliability of the grid's impact on local organizations.
Good.
Good. They need to hear it.
To have generators to watch our DTE ads, you know?
Yes, that's right.
Is it correct that we're not backed up here still, right?
The data center is backed up. The building cannot operate. We can keep our systems online, but the building cannot operate.
The data center,
yes,
but not the full building.
That's correct. Yeah, and as a matter of fact, we went through that this past summer.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, 3 days time in a long, very
Yeah.
long
We had to
time.
That's
reschedule
right.
a board meeting.
Yeah.
But is it true then, though, that it hadn't gone out since the aughts here?
That's sort of the legend.
We had not had more than a few minutes since the 2003 blackout, I think.
Oh, that's what you said, right?
Yeah,
That's why I
yeah,
remember that
wow.
now. Well, so maybe we should cross this bridge later.
I mean, I think my sense is that you're just looking for us essentially to say, go out and do the research and bring it back to us, is that right?
Well, I think, so this is just a discussion item. I think
Yeah.
if you like the idea, we could bring a resolution back next month, which would approve the budget and then start that process of going to bid, just like we've done with the other projects. Go to bid, see what's available, see if that budget is accurate. This was updated from the original generator project, and it's about a 20% increase, I think, for what it was, but really, it's lead time on the unit.
Yeah.
But I guess that's what I would suggest is, we'll talk about it again in October.
And so
have
you
a
believe
resolution.
these to be these are current costs, essentially?
Yes.
Got it, okay.
And, again, we'll see with Westgate, because there could be some savings. You see with the 125 kilowatt generators with transfer switch, we already have one. It's not a huge savings, but I would leave that in there just in case, if that was 2016 when we put it in.
Yeah.
So it being in there is a good place to be.
Well, those particular neighborhoods that use Westgate so much have had a lot of power outages this year. Like, I think that Westgate's very important for their sort of feeling of like stability in their lives right now. Like, do we need to wait until October? Like, should we just do something? Should we give Len some
Provisionally?
availability? Yeah, right, like we have done with other decisions.
I am comfortable and supportive of that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I hate spending money on fossil fuel infrastructure, but I think we can't argue that it's a necessary thing, like, for the community.
Well, if you're comfortable with the amounts that are on page 54, we can just move forward with the research and bring you a resolution when we have the number dialed in.
Yeah.
So we're not really losing any time there.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, to Jamie's point, this is where I live, and so I feel very attached to that branch as well. And we also, this neighborhood on the west side in that area is always the last to be restored. It's unbelievable. So like a lot of places in town, I mean, the infrastructure tends to be particularly fragile.
Yeah.
Which I think is why people are so like.
Well, this last outage was odd, because a lot of the neighborhoods that usually last to be restored were restored before Westgate. And every storm's different, but it was odd this last time.
Yeah, we were out for a full.
Correct me.
Insane.
So I think we need a resolution to approve the budgeted amount to go to bid. Because that would require a contract with O'Neill Construction.
Well, but they're not approving the resolution.
They're not.
I mean, we can collect bids whenever we want. So I think we can get the bids, because we're not agreeing, but it is a contract, like the bid is a contract.
It is.
Okay. So we need to put this together for next.
Okay, I never pull this sort of thing, so I don't know.
Because
That's
what.
We could do it on the fly.
No,
Just
because
call us.
that's what number one, the general conditions would cover, with things like going to bid, the scope review, all of that. That's covered with general conditions, and I think we would need to commit to them. We would need a resolution for that.
Okay.
But I mean, most of the time on this project is gonna be waiting for the thing to ship.
Yes.
And it's not gonna
Yeah.
make much of a difference between.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
Okay.
Thanks for bringing this to us.
Well, and I think that, it's also, when we made this investment, I don't think it was clear to any of us what a central role we would play in the city's resiliency efforts. I mean, we are who they're turning to first.
Yeah.
And, because people are already comfortable with our spaces, and that makes a big difference versus going into a high school gymnasium with cots or something like that. So, this has become a lot more important to us operationally, than I think we were expecting.
Agreed.
We were just kind of looking at it from, like, we were tired of having to close the building. It didn't really occur to us how important it would be for the building to be open when the neighborhood was down.
Yeah, the conversation, we see these storms coming in, the conversation starts 2 days before now, where it never happened before, and that's internally, that's with the city, and it's nice to see everyone come together. All right, well, thank you all, I'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Thanks, Len. All right, moving right along. The next item for discussion, of discussion, are proposed changes to policy 3.1, circulation. Which we will find on page 55, yeah.
Okay, so, this is just an item of discussion, so we'll talk about it today and we'll get any feedback from you. So these changes here to the circulation policy are mostly focused around updating some things that have changed over the pandemic to reflect current operational procedures, as well as basically making it easier to get a card. Clearing up some of the things that have kind of gotten more complicated than they needed to be. For example, currently, our application requires a signature from someone at a business to verify that you're an employee. There's no reason that we need that. There's multiple ways that a person can prove that they are a current employee of a business. We don't need to be asking someone who maybe works in a low-wage job to ask their employer for something that the employer doesn't understand. Like, often we will get a question from employers, does this mean I'm responsible for their checkouts? And for a while, we used to say yes, but that's not the case. It's in the person's name. Like, if we send a notice, it's going to the person at their address. The business is not involved. So it's really catching the policy up to that. So you can see there under 3.1 BC, the first major change, employees of businesses, institutions, or organizations. We're adding the word institutions and we're removing the words nonprofit. One of the things that this makes very clear, currently we do not offer cards to UMich employees, okay? It's because of a conversation that Josie and the provost had once. Well, I don't really care what the provost thinks about who gets a library card. This is not the provost's job. It's the library's job. And I don't see any reason that someone who's employed by the UMich, while the land they own doesn't generate tax revenue, they also rent a lot of property in town. So there's really no question that they are supporting the library, aside from the existence of this entire community. So this will enable anyone who works with an address in our district, including UMich employees, to get a card for no fee. So that'll be a nice change. And it makes it clear that they are people who work at locations. We're also taking off nonprofit just to make it extra clear. Any sort of an organization that can demonstrate they have an address in the district is paying taxes in some form or another and are entitled to a library card at no cost. So it just says they'll be required to improve their current employment to receive a library card, and that those procedures, that's procedure, not policy. So they'll be developed by staff with the permission of the board. Another change, 3.1 BE, we're just removing the word instructional here. Now, arguably, by saying institutions and organizations in the other one, we're covering schools, but I think it's still important to say this covers schools because it's something we've done specially for schools for a long time. There are many employees of schools in the district who would like to get a card so that they can help teach the kids that are residents of our district. So it's a very easy thing for us to do and really not going to come up all that often. Yes?
If you're striking the word state, what is an improved?
So, okay, that's a good question. So there is a list of state-approved K through 12 schools that the State Department of Education maintains. For years, that was our list to define what a school is. However, for some reason, and I don't know quite why, because it's not exactly our field, there are major schools in the area that are no longer on that list. Father Gabriel Richard is a good example. It's indefensible for us to say that K-12 students get cards and students of Father Gabriel Richard, a major high school with hundreds of students, cannot get cards. That is totally located inside of our district. So instead of using that state approved list, it's some accreditation related thing. I'm not sure what's going on there. Instead of that, library administration will be maintaining a list of known schools in the district. And our criteria for that will then be, do they have an address and can you enroll? Right? It's like we're looking to avoid this is my school in my living room that my kids go to sort of thing, but they would have to be in the district anyways. They would already be students. But it doesn't come up very often, but we want to make sure that we have the ability to maintain our own list since there are clearly some major gaps.
So I think that you want some definitional language. I don't know. I mean, I haven't.
No, not necessarily. Say a list of approved schools are, procedures and a list of approved schools are developed by library management.
Got it. Okay, so it's covered there.
We've got that in there, that the staff basically, through it, will administratively maintain a list of such schools.
Noted.
It's not very often that a new one comes along.
Yeah.
Then in 3.1C, lowering the minimum payment in case we want to start offering monthly subscriptions of $12.50. We wouldn't really do that across the desk because it's too much work, but we should be able to set up a Square subscription, basically like Netflix or anything else, so that it just automatically charges your card $12.50 once a month, cancelable at any time. So this is just putting the policy infrastructure in place to allow that. And then we're removing some gendered language in 3.1F, B. And then renewal of library card, we are no longer requiring people to appear in person to renew their library card. That was something that changed by necessity during the pandemic, and we found it to be completely unproblematic. And then finally, just there's a couple things where we're changing service desk to service point so that it encompasses online service points instead of having to come to a desk. Then finally, 3.1Q, we're just adding a reference here to the fee that is applied to accounts when they are referred to collections. When we have an account, just to walk through what that procedure is again, there's no overdue fees. When you have an item that has become 45 days overdue, you've already received several notices from us telling you that you should bring it back. At 45 days, you receive a bill, okay, for the replacement cost of the item. 45 days after your balance of your account goes above $25, you will be sent to collections, a collection agency. Okay, and the collection agency will send you a slightly more stern letter. The collection agency that we use is a library-specific collection agency, and as such is not allowed to make reports to credit agencies. So one thing that's just important to remember, we always tell staff, don't mention this across the desk because we want the collections letters to work, but we cannot impact a patron's credit negatively. So even though it is a collection agency, it's just a different organization that is sending a letter. There's no teeth, legally or otherwise, behind that letter. And it works. It gets people to bring back the materials, gets people to bring back the stuff. However, it does cost us to refer to the collection agency. So when someone passes that threshold and is referred to a collection agency, a $10 charge, which is what it costs us, is applied to their account. And that's just referencing that in the policy.
And that's new, the $10 charge?
No, we've been doing that since the beginning. It's just never been referenced in the policy.
Okay.
Thanks for updating the language to be more inclusive. Love to see that. I think that's important.
Any questions about any of this or any feedback or things you think we should change?
It's exciting, the U of M thing. I've wanted this for a long time. I feel like it's too bad U of M isn't, I guess I had always hoped it would be reciprocal, and maybe they will get there, but I think this is very good to do on our own over here.
Okay. All right, well, if you think of anything, don't hesitate to send me an email. Otherwise, we will bring this set of changes forward for approval at the October meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Eli. And the next policy as an item discussion is a proposed policy for citizens' comment, which is the loose draft.
Yes. Loose draft in the back of your packet. Okay, what you've got here is our first draft of what, and we're changing it from a citizens' comment policy to a public comment policy.
Yes, thumbs up.
This is based on a draft that council developed for us, and I had a conversation with them last week just to make sure after getting some feedback from the executive committee, just getting some of our questions answered there. Also attached here is the form that people have filled out for years. Most of the things that we're wanting to put in this policy are currently on this form, but they should exist in our policy. That was advice from council, that we don't currently have a policy that governs these things, and we should. And then finally, the third page is an excerpt from an Open Meetings Act handbook that's distributed by the Attorney General about open meetings, just to kind of, all of these are already reflected in this policy, but these are like the key takeaways. Karen pulled these together just to kind of see what are the things that the Attorney General is saying, make sure you have in your comment policy. So this is very much status quo in terms of how things work for public comment here currently. It has the, it says that it happens in the order of business, meaning we would continue to have 2 sessions. What we don't have here is a reference to people being able to sign up in advance. That's something that we could put in here. But it basically says you can sign up, or you can just say that you want to when the time comes around, but it has to be during the recognized time. It talks about what are the different ways that the chair or presiding officer can deal with issues that might happen during public comment, such as if there's a, what's the phrase? Disrupt the decorum of the board meeting, or if they are not using civil language, things like that, that just there are options available for the presiding officer. And then it's mostly just to say how many times they can speak. For example, this says no participant may speak more than once per meeting. That was the boilerplate that we started with. Our current policy says once per meeting on a particular issue. So that's certainly something we could make an adjustment to if need be. It doesn't come up very often, but it's also something that the board can consider one way or another. I think those were the major things that we wanted to get feedback on here. And then one other thing is that this also makes some clarity. We kind of got a little loose with this throughout the pandemic, especially with the kids' summer game things. We started reading comments, right? Well, we don't generally want to read comments that you receive during the meeting. That's not really a public comment. So instead, this specifies at the bottom, in addition to actually coming and making a comment, we'll make a new email address that you can send a comment to that will go to the board and will show up in the packet. And that's how it reaches the public record. So you can email the board at any time your comment. The board will see it. It will go into the public record, but it won't necessarily be read aloud in a person's absence at the meeting.
I don't like that.
Okay.
I think my thing is, I think that there's like a disability access thing that we have to consider. And I understand like the being able to call in might not be a thing, but when people are making a public comment, I guess there's the assumption that that's for the entire public and not just the board. And so I understand it's in the minutes, but I think we might consider some way to like, just, okay, if you want to make a comment and you can't be here, submit it by X time and it'll be read aloud. So maybe it's not like it's going to be, if you submit it during the meeting, maybe we won't get it until next time, or follow up with an email. But if we could have some system, because I'm just thinking of people that physically cannot be in this space with us and do not have those opportunities, and not for a lack of the building or anything like that, but just life happens. So I would love if we could try to find some halfway point there.
How about a voicemail? If they can leave a voicemail, we actually play it during the meeting, because I prefer to leave it in their own words, in their own voice.
No, I love that. Yeah.
Right, I don't want it, I think like with the kids' comments, you're in the position of reading something potentially cute or heartwarming. But what if your voice has to say something that is really very much not in line with your own values? I don't want you to be in that position. I don't mean to be like paternalistic. I just, anyone occupying your role.
Sure. No, but that's a good point. Do you feel that we accomplish that if we allow people to leave a voicemail that then gets played?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I want to make sure there's some pathway, and I think we can set boundaries on like it has to be submitted by 4 p.m. or, I don't want to make a ton of work for anyone either at the same time, but I just, got to make sure we have some avenues to communication and just making sure those comments are really being made in a public way. I think just for accountability, and then just, if you're making a public comment, the email shifts things, so I would love to see that. Yeah.
If it's related to accessibility, sort of broadly speaking. I mean, I think part of accessibility is about disability, part of it's about like, what if I can't come here because I have a job where I have to work at 8 p.m. on a Monday night, as many people do. I wonder, like, so voicemail, yes, interesting solution, but I also wonder, like, are there other best practices that public bodies are deploying in this moment to like sort of allow for greater inclusivity for public comment? I don't know. So like, maybe there is, maybe there isn't. Maybe a lot of public bodies are so sort of rooted in the kind of letter of the law that maybe there isn't. And so I do agree that like there should, like, we have a kind of ethos of inclusivity as a culture in the system, that I think it's important to imagine how public comment could, you know, change, whether it's a voicemail or some other mechanism for people who can't physically be here. So I would just sort of like underscore, and maybe also look out to other peers if there are others to look at. I have some other comments.
Please.
You know, I would say, so number 7 and number 7 on the form and in the policy are somewhat related. I don't believe that there are rules of common courtesy. I think that's white supremacist language, frankly. And that needs to be reconsidered. And I also think that the idea of civil language is also really complicated and sort of just latent with all kinds of problems. And is, you know, borderline speech policing. I think we might be able to look for different kinds of words that might have to be grounded in maybe mutual respect. I mean, frankly, I think it's the right of a citizen to come here and personally attack any one of us if they want to.
Strong
And I don't think we can write it into policy that they can't. And, you know, as much as we don't want to be in uncomfortable, intense exchanges, I think legally, most speech exchanges there are very specific ways in which speech turns into violence in the law. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a lawyer and I don't know all of them. I just know that that is a fact. And I just am very reluctant to like sign on for a policy that says things like, I mean, we have this form, rules of common courtesy or civil language, which I'm just not sure that we even can agree what either of those things are functionally.
I asked counsel about, because that was from the original draft, and I said, you know, one of our questions was, do we need this if the president has the ability to
interrupt?
Right. And their response was, well, this is the pretense upon which you interrupt. Is that gives you some backing to interrupt, is to say, well, that's not civil language or something like that. But well heard, and I think this is worth exploring because it's that's why we're having this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, this came up in the executive committee meeting as well when we were talking about this, and I had like many of the same responses as you, Jim. And I think a couple of the pieces that I think are relevant. So, should not engage in personal attacks that are unrelated to the administration of the Ann Arbor District Library.
Right.
So they can tell us that we're doing a horrible job in whatever language they want to, but they can't like come after our parenting or our personal lives, right? And that feels, at least in terms of staff, that feels like a line I'm very comfortable with, and also a line that I was comfortable with for us, that like, yes, whatever they want to say about the library, like how we run the library, that's fine. And the civil language piece, I said the same things that you did. The problem is when we get things like Holocaust deniers and other kinds of like, the kinds of bad actors that other libraries are seeing come to their meetings, where they're bringing all kinds of racist, homophobic, transphobic stuff. Having some way to draw a line where we can like shut that down.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that point of view and also don't want to be like the object or subject of like a, you know, fill in the blank attack. However, it is also within the right of a citizen to come and say something that is like categorically false, untrue, a conspiracy theory. I mean, this is where this is culture war playing out, is like, yeah, and I don't know, like, it like my progressive heart is like always trying to consider and turn the prism on like, what does it mean to walk into space where it's like, yeah, that can happen. And we have to have strategies in terms of engaging with it, but I don't know if you can prevent it. And we also, as the sort of trustees, have much more of a platform in our 2-hour meeting than someone who has 3 minutes. So we are entitled to talk about our disagreement, the categorical falseness of some of those statements. So I don't know, I'm still, we are the defenders of free speech as the AADL, as a library system. And that means that some free speech is crap speech.
I have a question that's maybe somewhat related to that. So I was sort of bristling against this idea that we would restrict them from attacking us personally because we're elected officials, and I feel like that kind of comes with the territory a little bit. So, like, but they could attack us about the library, but not other parts of our lives. So do we want to restrict people to just talk about the library, and then that would be sort of like a pointless thing to restrict further? But we don't do that. They could talk about anything they want for 3 minutes, and I think there's something sort of aligned with our values about
Yes,
that.
it's true.
And that's like plays out, you know, especially in the summer game. So I feel like, I don't really feel like I want to have this policy to preemptively protect me as an elected official. It just feels like I'm getting more protections than maybe, and you look like you're going to say something.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's like, this stuff is inside this draft because it's very common in these sorts of policies, and that was the starting point. And so I'm glad we're having this conversation.
I want to, like, I guess the thing I'm like wrestling with is the prism, right, of like wanting to be open and inclusive, but also thinking about the various ways this can be exploited to do damage.
Yeah.
And it's not just about our feelings. And it's not just to protect us, but to protect other people who might be in the room, because people can say things that will make it intolerable for the people we want to be in this room to stay in this room. And so at what point do we draw the line that's where that we cannot tolerate a certain threshold of intolerant speech because it is denying the existence of like people's right to exist in the world, there's a threshold there that I think is hard to wrestle with. And I think leaning back and just saying we just have to sit back and let people say whatever they want, I would like to have a tool to be able to thread that needle, because we've also been seeing this play out in libraries around the country where organized groups come together to make those kinds of attacks. And even thinking along, like, they only have 3 minutes, one person has 3 minutes, 100 people have 300 minutes. And if we have a wide open public comment policy with no way to minimize that, that's a vector for an attack. They could just make our meetings last forever.
They can do that anyway.
Well, no, they can't though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like we could have a policy that could prevent
If
that
100 people
attack.
come and sign up,
Yeah.
and they all want to talk
Or
about
leave a voicemail.
right, or leave a voice. I mean, or leave a voicemail.
That's what I mean. That's not hard to get a robot to read 100
But this
voicemails.
is why,
Like,
is why education board meetings go on until 4 a.m. You know, we just
They actually have a policy that constrains the number of minutes based on the number of commenters, so it limits the total
so
time.
maybe that's that's an aspect. I mean, I'm just really trying personally, like, you know, I have a lot of intersectional identities, so like I often find myself in conversations like this, and I'm just trying to really encourage like our ability as a board is to act in a much more systemic way around our programs, our policies, and in the context of this meeting, to exercise a kind of like modeling of sort of social courage or pushback that like we're not seeing a whole lot of. We're seeing a lot of like polarization as opposed to like being able to undertake a kind of in the moment exercise if that were to happen here, which puts a lot of burden on us as a body and as individuals. And so there's a policy here that's trying to say, okay, rather than having to be responsive in the moment, we're going to just kind of try to shut down the thing from ever happening.
Well, but I also think that there's a
big gap between saying common courtesy and defining hate speech.
Right.
Yes.
Right? Like, I think
Yeah,
we can find something between.
Yes. Thank you.
Like,
That's a reasonable. That's a
you
reasonable
know,
gesture,
and I
which is
think
to say
that's important.
this is vague and unspecific.
Yes,
and
and
we have a code of values, which is like which can say like listen, institutionally as a community as a body, like here's.
No, and I think that, right, but I think having this conversation of saying common courtesy, there is no such thing.
Right.
But there is such a thing as legally defined hate speech. And that won't, my opinion is that should not be tolerated.
But I also think that
in
shouldn't be
this
tolerated
space.
by the board members. So
Yeah.
should we really have a policy that's different for them than it is for us? Like, what if our board was made up of people who wanted to speak hate speech the whole time? There's one person who didn't. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that we want to constrain people. We are the public. We just happen to have, gotten into these roles, but we don't work for the library, and we could be anyone. Like, we weren't selected based on, alignment with the values of the library. We were selected by the people in our community.
Right.
So I feel like to define the broader community, to constrain their speech in a way that we wouldn't constrain ourselves seems odd to me. So
are you arguing that we specify hate speech, but not specify personal attacks against the board?
Well, maybe just that we also should adopt policies that govern the way that we communicate with each other, so that when someone comes to be in this space to communicate with us, they're just joining the way that we're already communicating. We have the same expectations for each other that we would for anyone joining the conversation.
But to a little bit, those are different documents, because the bylaws govern the board's behavior and the policies govern the public's behavior.
Right. So I guess I'm sort of advocating that the two be in alignment with one another, rather than I guess I have always felt like the public commenters get this sort of lower, there's a sort of elitism among the people sitting on the board typically, in alignment with the people coming to speak, and that doesn't make any sense because we're all just sort of participating in public governance.
That's right.
So why would we, and that comes up, we used to make people say where they lived in this way that made them feel small. I think there's we're kind of talking about several things at once, and I don't mean to conflate the very real concerns that you have about people coming to take over the meeting. But what if one of them was on the board, I guess, is sort of what I'm saying.
One thing that, sorry, was someone about to say?
I think that's the suggestion that the bylaws around, discussing how the board expects to behave itself, essentially, and members of the board be in alignment with what we're expecting from the public, is a good point. And I think to Eli's point, it's a separate document, so we could talk about maybe taking a look at the bylaws to bring that in alignment. And my previous comments were not defending the specific language of this thing, but just more thinking abstractly about how can we get to something here where we have the tools to mitigate particularly egregious behavior and speech.
Yeah.
One thing worth considering, which kind of interacts with some of the risk models that we've talked about here tonight, is do you have to live in the district to make a public comment to the board at all? Because many of the cases, particularly for libraries that have had reconsideration bombings, not literally bombings, but when they've had thousands of requests, typically, often none of those people are residents of the district.
Yeah, they're carpetbaggers.
They're carpetbaggers, exactly. So do you have something in your policy, because even if they don't have to identify themselves publicly in the video feed or something like that, but is there a mechanism by which you verify that they're constituent? Because is the space that you're offering accessible to people who are not residents of our very sharply defined district, even if they don't have a fixed address within said district?
Do you know what the law is on that?
Well, the attorney said you can absolutely restrict public comment to your constituents. So that is a mechanism that exists. So that's something that you can definitely consider. It would rarely come up here unless we were being, attacked, targeted.
It doesn't seem in alignment with the way that we behave otherwise, though. We let anyone join summer game.
That's true.
Yeah, and I mean.
But that's not governance,
I'm
to
not
be fair.
looking for ways to restrict, I mean, I'm not looking for additional ways to further restrict who gets to stand up, you know, and I think that there is a question about whether or not a policy can actually manage what is, you know, a potential or anticipated crisis or attack, right? And it, you know,
I heard, I don't remember where I heard this, but someone once, it wasn't a trustee, but someone said policy is anxiety avoidance. It's not actually about like what's going to happen.
Right.
and what's not
You know,
gonna
by the time it's sort of, I think, like in my life of working with artists and managers, it's like if you have to say to somebody, well, it's in your contract, there's a lot of other stuff that's already broken. Because it's never, like pointing to policy is really sort of, you know, your last reserve in lots of ways. Or it's either your first, I don't know. But it lives somewhere within a process of thinking about how to address a set of anticipated behaviors or events that, you know, like I don't know if we can stop people from saying untrue things, right?
Well,
That's
but I
not
think
on
it,
here.
no, but I also think
Why?
I mean, on the other side, policy prevents discrimination.
I mean, it can.
Yeah,
Theoretically, yes.
No, but I mean, you know what I mean? Because it's like, well, you know what I mean? If we're saying like, we don't allow hate speech, right? Or whatever it is that we're saying, you're defining what is and what isn't allowed versus like, we don't like your opinion, so we're cutting you off.
Right. Right, which I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, like, you know what I mean? I'm not like unilaterally
Well, no,
prevents
right,
discrimination,
so-
but it creates definitions before the problem arises in a way that's clear, so that we can say, this has been defined as what is allowed and what is not, versus, well, we don't like this.
I agree with that.
You know,
Which is like some kind of statement about whether it's about hate speech or another, like the sort of, you know, cornucopia of words that one uses to describe like bad acting in the context of, you know, public
Right.
setting.
Yeah.
Like
No, and-
discriminatory language or
Right.
whatever.
And I mean, I get what you're saying,
Yeah.
right? That it's like, it doesn't prevent people from what, you know, like what we're seeing all over the country happening. But I do think it can, it's like when you hire somebody and you're like, here are the expectations of behavior versus after that person's made 5 of those mistakes, and then you give them the expectations of behavior once they've like had those behaviors. You know what I'm saying?
I think we're all aligned at this point is replacing common courtesy with some more appropriate language in terms of hate speech, giving a definition for it, moving forward, unless I'm mishearing everybody.
No, I think that
And then
that's-
additionally as well, Jamie, and your point, which I'm entirely in agreement with as well, that we should take a look at our internal bylaws to more accurately reflect what the public comment is about as well.
I also just want to say, in reality, like, these policies are great, but if people are going to attack us,
They're gonna attack
going
us.
to attack us.
Yeah.
Like, it just is like, I've been in advocacy a long time. When people plan these things, they're going to find different words that sting just as much. So if people need this, but I think, yeah, the definition, I think we're really looking for a much better definition.
I think I still want someone like Scott in this instance to have grounds to officially point to and
Exactly.
Yeah, I think we're less able to prevent the attack
Yeah.
and more able to prevent losing a lawsuit that falls out after the attack
Yeah. Yeah.
because we made up a rule on the fly.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that that's really the threat model that we're thinking about here is not so
Yeah.
much about having a meeting get ruined by bad actors, but more like what is then the institutional fallout over time of how we dealt with that in the moment.
Well, and this is just such a tricky area because, like, I'm on the record far left liberal, so I'll just say, like the far right has like figured out how to activate and use all of the laws and all of the language in their favor against liberal institutions. So if it really is, it's actually about, creating a space that is truly like possible for speech with probably some set of more specific guidelines, and what those look like, I don't know, that are a combination of like sort of setting a tone and also have a kind of legal sort of imperative to them, or a kind of legal, I have no language left today, sorry, my brain is failing, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think like the scenario I'm imagining is somebody's up there like just spewing out slurs. Like, I want to be able to stop that,
Right.
and I don't want to get sued, and to get the institution sued for doing it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
You might get sued anyway.
You don't want to lose.
I don't want to
think-
lose the
yeah.
lawsuit. I'm happy to stand up in court, but I
Yeah.
don't want to put ourselves in a
Right.
position where we lose, and then we just open the door for that forever.
Yeah, which is like, we've not really had a
Well,
policy.
that's what I want to, oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Just that like you and I and now Scott have been in this seat where you've had to control the meeting, and the only time I've had to stop someone from talking, they were already on the board. So I just think that like we're making this policy, and I think that we should, and it's very good given the like general environment that we're in. But, to date, the three of us have not had to do this for public comment. Public comment's been a really positive, it's sometimes challenging to hear.
Yeah.
But we are creating a policy that I guess I want to acknowledge that I understand that it is like for a threat that is like maybe not here at the moment, but is not impossible. And I don't think it's imprudent to make these rules. I just want to point out.
I would ask the question, and I think that, we've been very lucky in that regard.
Right.
If we could all go back to the moment when, Dharma
That's true.
was making her transition, and we had a comment that was really aggressive. And like, I just play out what a policy does in that moment, where like, I'm not sure anything would have operated differently, right? And that felt really intense and bad. So I think that it's just like kind of to play out some different scenarios maybe in the executive committee about like what what we as a body want the policy to actually do, and then also what do we need to be prepared for the eventuality of something like this happening, and that's like training or something. And now I need a policy to shut up.
Well, yeah, and I agree with that orientation, because the thing I don't want is to create a bunch of barriers. Like, I don't like, and I don't like asking people like to prove something in order to speak. Like, we want to, because it's intimidating.
It's already intimidating,
so
right?
like, and for the most part, we want people to feel comfortable coming up and speaking. I guess the last thing, I guess maybe we can continue to talk about this in the executive committee meeting, is thinking about time management, because like just another threat model is I would like this body to be able to continue to function. And so if we have an open-ended public comment at the beginning of the meeting with no limit, then people could push our meetings into the next day or into recess, and we'll never actually be able to act as a board, because we won't be able to get past the thing our policy says people have the opportunity to exploit up to a limit of some number of people. And so coming up with a strategy to optionally allow us to set a limit on public comment at the beginning, and we can always move it to the end and have that be unbounded. And if, and then if people just want to pour bodies into the 3-minute time, they can do it until they run out. And we either stay here until they're done or set a new meeting to let them continue.
I mean, if there are the similar, I mean, I agree with that. If there are similar kinds of policies that we should, if that school board or city council or whatever is running a time limit, that, a container for the whole meeting, then we should have that as well.
Yeah, so maybe that's something we can think about, just how can we give some structure so we have that option to like actually move on with board business, so we don't get trapped in having to just sit and listen.
Right.
Okay.
And then just flagging on number 3, just more inclusive language there as well, just to be consistent.
Yes.
Oh, yes. And to be clear, this is the old.
That's what I was thinking. Just want to make sure that there was a flag
The
there.
front
Definitely.
page is the draft.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. just wanted to make sure that it was.
Thank you.
Well, as Aiden said, I mean, I think the spirit of what everybody is saying is really in line.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and it's just a matter of like, how do you find the right language to capture that for all of us? And, you know, I just want to jump on board to say, like, I don't want to limit who can get up and talk, right? Like, I don't want the policy to go in that direction. I would much rather refine the language of common courtesy, you know, to be clear, so that the person sitting in the hot seat of the presidency, you know, has the right to jump in when that lines up.
Like hate speech and threats of violence would be fine language to have.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't think it's restrictive to have guardrails in place.
Yeah.
You know, everybody can be here doing the same thing, but just having these in place in case we need to break the glass.
Okay.
I'm sorry to belabor this, but when we're talking about the voicemail aspect, one thing that occurred to me is some people can't speak.
Yeah.
So we might also just want to figure out, like, I know there are services sometimes where they allow people to leave comment who have that, so I just want to make sure we consider that. Thank you.
Okay.
It seems, again, finer grain detail, it seems kind of out of step with our highly digital culture not to allow people to sign up in advance if they want to.
Sure.
Like somehow.
Oh, yeah. Like an online portal?
Yeah.
I like portals.
Sign up in advance to speak at the meeting.
Yeah. Like to go online and submit your form, you know,
Yep.
on Friday to speak on Monday or whatever.
Isn't that what council does? You have to
You
call.
have to
it?
call and
That's
talk
what
to
I
a human.
thought.
By like 9 a.m. or something?
Not anymore, they pushed it back, but you still have to call and talk to a person.
They're moving that up.
But I would say that's just additive to like whatever.
Well, and
Yeah.
again,
Better
to
than
get,
council.
to get a little granular on the, like, you know, could it be as simple as if you write in, can you request that it be read out loud? Or can you know what I mean? Can you?
I like the voicemail idea better because of like, I don't want to have to make somebody read something really horrible.
No, but I mean from a disability standpoint,
Yeah.
right? Like if you.
Have Siri read it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. I think I've got enough of feedback.
You don't want more? Come on.
Yeah.
But seriously, is there anything else anyone else wanted to add before we finish up? Because we'll discuss this some further. We'll discuss it in executive committee. We may not bring it back next month because this is some pretty big stuff to investigate. So maybe another month before we bring it back.
I would love if you consulted with a lawyer about the hate speech, threats of
Yes.
violence
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
just to make sure we're covered. Because if we're using it as a lawsuit preventative thing, let's make sure it aligns with
Yep.
that.
Yeah, and we can talk about this in executive committee, but like the personal attacks against board members, I can live with that not being in there, say what you want about me. But other people,
Right.
like, you know, including people in my family, like, I don't, like, I want to, or your families, like, I don't want that to be something that can become
know. I
subject to
mean-
conversation here, so.
I think that's tough. I don't
Yeah.
know if I fully agree with that.
Yeah,
I-
so
I
we can
feel like
debate
I
that again when
understand
it comes back around, but that's something where, because it can get vile, like really, really,
Yeah,
really
oh,
bad.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have an inbox, I know.
I do think this is a really open and honest discussion with like free flowing for the most part, and that's great. This is like what we do. We're advising on the behavior of others, but this is important. This is the
This is how we operate.
right.
Okay. Thank you all
Thank you
very
all.
much.
Yeah. And on that note,
Do we have any more?
right, any citizen comments? Okay, thank you, Karen. And with that, we are adjourned.